Science fiction, the great teacher, the great inspiration. It helps us see the endless possibilities of life. So let's be inspired together.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
Sending out interceptors. We have taken them completely by surprise.
Hello everybody, it's the Commodore. I hope everybody's been doing well. And I spent a few days in the Klingon homeworld, and I went through this sort of like it was sort of shore leave thing for me, and I had to, I wanted to learn a little bit about Klingons, and so while I was there, I partaked in a little ritual where they take young teenage Klingons and they put them through sort of a trial where they're tested for their knowledge of Klingon history and some of the basic defense lessons that they are supposed to have learned growing up. And I decided to partake in it. Although the Klingons that were around me were laughing because I was much older than the teenagers, they respected, my courage to be able to do something like that, and and just take the take the hits, from people, thinking I'm an idiot. So I went through the program. I got a sash and a symbol here for once I completed it. I also had to build my own disruptor, which I did. It's crude. It's my disruptor. It's doesn't have as much range as a normal disruptor. I did the best I could. I mean, considering that this is Klingon technology, but I built it, and so it's something I'll add to my collection. I keep around. I get old antique phasers and tricorders and the like. And this will be, my little, symbol of my going through the program. I was invited back again if I wanted to take the level 2 part of that, which involves people, pre-warriors, actually, Klingons, before they become warriors, to partake in order to test their mettle in survival without weapons. So I said I'd think about it. So I don't know. Anyway, as I was, thinking about stuff on Star Trek, I noticed in season 2 Star Trek Picard, they used a method of time travel that hadn't been seen since Star Trek 4. Now, there's a lot of Star Trek 4 references in season 2 Picard, which is kind of annoying in a way. I mean, there was one scene there where they have his name is Kirk Thatcher, is it? And in Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, he was the punk on the bus who was playing music from a boombox really loud. And Kirk asked him if he would stop that damn noise, and the guy flips him the bird, and then Spock reaches over, gives him a nerve pinch, and this music shuts off, which was, a comedic kind of thing, which was funny. So we fast forward to today after all these years, and they kind of run in, 7 of 9, and Raffi run into this guy on yet another bus, and he's on the bus look like he's stuck in the teenage years, and he's got a boombox, and he's playing another version of that same song that, like, they had made another one, a sequel to it, and Seven basically tells him to shut off that damn noise, But it was funny, yes, but it was a little bit forced, And what I mean by forced is like, well, look, it seems like you just basically ripped off that whole scene and just pasted it right into season 2 Picard. And I'm thinking, like, well, it's not really realistic, okay? Because why would this guy, who's probably in his 50s now, be playing music on a boombox, which nobody uses anymore? Okay, and he's on a bus, and why would he be playing that kind of shit? I mean, wouldn't everybody on the bus be telling him to shut that up? Because it's rap music that everybody listens to now, not rock or heavy metal as it was. So I was like, there was more ways they could have modified that scene without having to do it that way, and we would have known it was him. But instead, they just basically cut and pasted, that scene from Star Trek 4 right in there, and they just replaced Kirk and Spock with Seven and Raffi. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, it's kind of funny, but it's also, like, repetitive. I mean, we've seen it before, so it's not as funny as when we saw it originally. So I was like, yeah, that was an attempt that, was a fail, I think. I mean, some people thought it was cute, but I just felt like, well, it's a scene they really shouldn't have put in there, I don't think. But unless they wanted to, they should have done it in a different way. Or maybe this guy was the one telling somebody else to shut off the damn noise because they're playing something on rap, or something, and he can hear it. And that probably would have been a better reference to the Star Trek 4. Like, now he's the one that's telling people to shut the sound off and not Kirk or somebody younger than him. But that's just me. If I was to do that, I think the fans would have recognized that either way. Okay, so there was that scene, and then there was a scene where I'm trying to think now. Well, of course, the time travel was a direct, ripoff from Star Trek 4, going around the sun, the slingshot maneuver. Okay. I mean, it was almost play-by-play right to the, till they emerged on the other side. So it was like, it's like, well, yeah, it's a reference, but, we can still use it because it is, an established method of time travel for Star Trek. Because they did use it in TOS, they used it in a movie, they've mentioned it in TNG, but never did it. But they used it here, so I'm like, well, okay. But it seemed like it was kind of odd that they put that in there. I mean, it's like, well, what is this? Everything is going to be referencing Star Trek 4. So I don't know, but it just it felt kind of forced. And so anyway, my point here for this is I want to talk about the time travel elements of it. Now, I heard. Or not heard. I mean, I do a lot of reading, so I read online, and I think it was on a Star Trek website or something like that. I can't remember which one. There's so many of them out there. There were people having a conversation about time travel, and somebody had written down that if one goes back in time, okay, and then goes back to where they think they're, where they're forward in time, okay, back home, let's say, the future they end up at is not the same future they left, and there's actually no way somebody who goes back into the past can return to their actual origins in the future. And I'm thinking, huh? Because I mean, I know I've seen Back to the Future a lot, many times, and it always seemed to me like if you go into the past and you don't fuck with anything and you just go back to the future, then you should be able to go back to the same future you left from, right? Well, apparently some people are saying that's not true, that if you go back into the past, you can't get back to where you left, because that future is relevant to the past that you're at that moment. Okay, so the future you go to is going to be the future of that past, take into the future. I'm thinking, well, what's the difference if it's that past, or it's still the past, right? But apparently, things get changed. Even small things will happen when you go into the past. And if you try to go back to the future, then that future is an alternate future. And there's no way you can get yourself back to where you came from originally. Okay? So then that's like, why does this work that way? I don't know how that happened. I mean, they were talking stuff, and I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like they heard this from somebody in the scientific community, and I can't remember whose name it was. It's nobody I know of. And they postulated that theory, according to what they said, that you cannot go back to the future you left from. I mean, that's it. You're lost in time. When you go to the past, that's it. You'll never see the same future. Even though it might resemble the future you left in many, many, many ways, it's still not the same. It's an alternate future. And I'm like, I'm still wrapping my head around it. So that means if that's true, then that means in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, when Kirk and the others return to the future, it ain't the future, not their future, okay? They return to an alternate future. So that means everything, after Star Trek IV is all alternate reality. In fact, everything from when they, from TOS, when they went back to the 1960s, remember when they picked up Captain Jeffrey Christopher there, or whatever his name is, from the airplane, when they did the slingshot maneuver then, and they went back into the future, then that wasn't their future either. That was an alternate reality. So everything after that would be considered alternate, okay? And so when they went back into the past again, I mean, that's another alternate future. So is there an actual, what you would call, like when they say prime universe or whatever, do we even have the right now to even say that? I mean, if it's true, if what I read on there was true, then there's no such thing as a prime universe in Star Trek. Then all the stuff is alternate, okay? Even Star Trek: The Next Generation would be a version of an alternate future because of what happened in Star Trek 4, So it seems like everything is all changed, and then I think back to how Discovery, Star Trek Discovery, how everything looks different there, and it only reinforces my opinion that you could take Star Trek Discovery and just say that's another reality. Okay, I mean, if there's so many goddamn realities, I mean, we're already saying that Kelvin universe from with Chris Pine's Star Trek is an alternate reality, which was confirmed in season 3 of Discovery, or 2, 4. I don't know. It's season 3, I think, where the guy in the suit there had mentioned that they communicated with that universe, and they found out where Spock ended up. Okay, so apparently they are able to communicate in that century they're in. They're able to communicate with different realities. How they can do it, I don't know. They didn't go that deep into that, but they know where Spock ended up eventually. Okay, so when they said that pretty much confirmed that that's another reality. So if that's a different reality, then I would suggest that even Discovery itself, is an alternate reality, one of millions, because if you look at the way Marvel and DC Universe are doing alternate realities these days, everything is true. All the different versions of Batman and stuff like that. It's all part of the universe, the multi-universe, as they say. And now they do crossovers from one Batman into another universe where there's a Batman, and they have two. You know what I'm saying? So they're doing stuff like that now, and I think it's just a way for people to, include other people's ideas. Because otherwise, people like reading, it's like, well, Christ, how long has this character been around? 500 years later, we're still writing Batman, comic books, and it's like, well, he would be dead long ago. So in order to answer that, they're saying, well, you're reading about adventures this other Batman had in another universe. So I think that's what they're trying to do, is answer it that way, and that's how it all started. And so when they started doing that, I think Hollywood movie makers thought that was a pretty neat idea, because it would justify them doing, you know, endless movies of a certain character, like, you know, like they have like the recent Batman movie, The Batman. They say that's a different Batman universe from the one that we see Michael Keaton and Val Kilmer, you know, and Ben Affleck. Okay, those are all different Batman universes. Okay, so they deliberately created the Batman, this recent one, and they made it into another version of Batman. Okay, and so that helps them to always, you know, if they bring back a different actor to play Batman, they can say, oh, this is a new Batman universe. So that justifies them continuing these things on, because you know how long it takes to make a movie. These actors don't stay at the age they were when they started. They get older. So after a while, people don't, you know, they just want to see somebody younger, and that's how they explain it, you know. So I think, you know, when we're talking about time travel and we go back in time and then we end up in the future, it's like, well, we accidentally end up into a different timeline, because we don't know, we can't get back to the one we left, because apparently somehow when somebody goes back in time, they're unable to get back to their own future, where they're from, where they're really from. So I don't I don't understand it, you know, personally. They're talking about science that goes over my head. I don't think really anybody can consider themselves completely secure in what they know about time travel. But I can say that, you know, from what I understood, that, you know, it seemed kind of, at first, kind of outlandish. And like I said, I don't understand the basis for why they say this. So maybe if I understood that better, maybe I could wrap my head around this better and say, well, you know, maybe there is some truth in that or something. I don't know. But I'd have to talk to the person that started it. Because getting it secondhand from somebody online, you know, just, you know, talking about Star Trek, you know, that's not going to be good enough for me. I got to have more than that in order to jump on that bandwagon. You know, that's why, I mean, I'm a stickler for detail. That's why at first I couldn't accept Star Trek Discovery, because of how different it all looked compared to, you know, in the time period that they say it's in. You know, it doesn't match in any way the TOS I know, okay? So it's like, well, you're telling me this is in the same period as Kirk, Spock, and the others when they were in their 5-year mission. Bullshit. Okay? I'm sorry. That doesn't equate. All right? I'll go as far as saying that's a different universe. I'll go that far, but I'm not going to go all the way and say that's exactly, you know, the universe that Kirk and Spock are in, because it doesn't look the same. You know, technology is going to be universal. You know, it's going to look the same. I don't care if it looks old-fashioned to some of the people out there, but you got a certain, you have to lay down a certain pattern. That you know, everything. You know, when you see it, you know what time period you're in. It has to resemble it, you know. And you know, there was ways that they could do the TOS look without, you know, making it look completely retro. I mean, it just, you know, just a few little things here and there would have been fine. But to go and put in full, you know, you know, Iron Man type shit in there and stuff like that. I mean, it's like, come on now, that stuff wasn't even talked about in TOS or even looked anything like that, you know. So that's why I couldn't get on with that, you know. And of course, there were other things too about it, but it was just that basically that really turned me off from it from that point. It just, and a lot of fans didn't like that idea either, because they figured, well, they're just, you know, catering to the younger viewers. It's like they don't give a shit about the older viewers. They just want these guys gone, and we're replacing them all with younger viewers now. So I'm saying, well, that's 50 fucking years of Star Trek you're basically flushing down the toilets just so you can have younger audiences. Okay. So Anyway, that's why, I figure that, this 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 idea would kind of really put a crimp in a lot of things we've seen in Star Trek, and how it would have, how every time there was a time travel episode, that whenever these people thought they came home, they didn't. It's just they ended up back in an alternate future. So there's no telling how many branches away from the Prime universe, you want to call it. We'll just say from the before the very first time travel episode would be considered. Everything before the first time travel episode in Star Trek history would have been considered Prime until, and then after that, everything was alternate from that point on. Okay, so if you want to include Enterprise as being before TOS, so did they do any time travel episodes in that? I think there was in season 3. I think there were a couple there where where Archer was sick with something, and they had to, in order to cure him, they had to eradicate the infection in the past somehow. I don't know. I think you guys know what I'm talking about, but I think there was one time travel one there they had that where they met their generation after. Remember, it was the NX-01, but it was like many years, in the future for them. That might have caused a problem there. I don't know. I'm just thinking, of course, when they went back into the history, that was supposed to be World War II, but that was all fucked up from the minute they got there. So they're supposed to have corrected that, according to Daniels on the Enterprise J. Because apparently when they finished their job and they returned home, I guess Daniels might have brought them back to the proper future where they belonged. I don't know. But I'm just going to say, from the, at least from the standpoint of TOS, the very first time travel episode would have marked the beginning of the branching off of the realities from the Prime universe, okay? And from then on, it's, anybody's guess as to where the hell they are, or, which Kirk are we looking at here, or what, what time period, what reality, just like poor Worf in that episode where he's bouncing around from different quantum realities and shit, I guess as a viewer of Star Trek, we're going to have to feel like the same way. Like, we're bouncing around in different quantum realities because we're not actually getting where we're supposed to be. It's just, So, anyway, let's go to a commercial break.
quit smoking.
Well, I'm not smoking. And I didn't think anybody could do that.
15,000 cigarettes a year times 35 years.
So I've been smoking for 45 years. It's the easiest thing in the world to quit. I've been there 1,000 times.
Cigarettes helps you break the nicotine addiction, and it works in as little as 7 days.
I smoked 43 years. I quit just like that. I thought I was just going to go nuts wanting a cigarette. I never did. I was just wonderful.
5 packs a day for a while. I'm doing great now.
She bought it and said, try it, and I reluctantly, half-heartedly tried it. But it was so easy that just breezed through it. Didn't have the urge to eat anymore.
As a matter of fact, I lost about 2 pounds.
No way did I want to gain weight in my life.
When they offered that money-back guarantee, I thought I just have to try it.
No matter how much you smoke, no matter how long you've been smoking, with cigarettes you'll quit or your money back. guaranteed. All for hundreds of dollars less than other major programs.
On the other programs, I guess I spent around $2,500 to $3,000.
When you think of the price, it's just amazing.
Think of what you can do with $1,000.
Well, I figured it up at 25 cents a packet. I could have bought 2 of the homes that I live in now.
And without smoking, we've got a few more years to go together. Tell them to do what I did. Just order it.
I'd say pick up that phone like I did and call the toll-free number.
Order your Cigarest now. Call 1-800-872-9800. With the Cigarest program, you're guaranteed to stop smoking in as little as 7 days without withdrawal, without gaining weight, and without spending hundreds of dollars. To save COD fees, have your credit card ready and call toll-free 1-800-872-9800 or send $19.95 plus $4 postage and handling to Cigarest, Box 4444, Carlsbad, California, 92008. Or call toll-free 1-800-872-9800 now.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Okay, welcome back. I was thinking back to around 2016 where people in Antarctica, well, they weren't there. I mean, I think what it was a satellite picked up a photograph of an area in Antarctica. And what they found, or what they thought they may have found, was a pyramid somehow kind of covered over with snow and ice, okay, and they think it was starting to poke out because of the climate change, and you know how it's heating up all over the world, and that they think that the ice melting is revealing this hidden pyramid that was made, or they think it was made. But people were saying, well, the mountain may look like a pyramid, but it's erosion and stuff like that caused it to make it look that way. And you know, I keep thinking, you know, well, they showed a picture of it, and I'm thinking it looks too specific a shape in order for that to be something random that's created by nature. Nature doesn't build in a straight line, okay? It doesn't create things like that. I mean, there's like this hidden wall in Texas, and I can't remember where it is. It's it's down there somewhere where people were digging in the ground, and they came across some rocks that were piled up, you know, like a wall, okay? And some people were theorizing that might have been made at a time when the Chinese people were probably here, and they made a wall or something there in Texas or whatever. But then they turned around and said, well, no, it's some form of nature doing this and stuff. And I'm thinking that doesn't, no. I'm thinking nature doesn't work that way, okay? Nature doesn't build structures. okay, it looked like a wall. What they dug up, they moved the earth away from the wall. I mean, there's still big parts of it exposed. It looks like rocks stacked on top of each other, okay? How the hell does nature make things look like that in just one specific spot in the whole fucking world? Okay, nature makes this wall in the ground. It doesn't make sense. I think some peoples way back built that damn thing, and over the centuries it just got buried over from sand and everything, because that area of Texas is just a lot of sand and earth and stuff around there, sort of like Las Vegas. After you've gone for like 10-15 years, you're going to find the desert reclaiming the territory. And I think it just got buried over. But for some guy that went down there and they're sitting there poking at it and looking at it and then saying, well, no, nature made this, man didn't. And I'm thinking, no, I don't believe that either. I don't think that's the answer either. My gut tells me that was made by ancient people at one point, and it just got forgotten and it got buried over. So I'm in dispute with that. And the same, I'm in dispute with this claim that this mountain in Antarctica is just that, not a thing made by man, but just something that erosion created. Okay, and I'm like, no. I mean, I've seen what erosion can create. I used to live in Texas, and in a town called Sonora, there's a place in Sonora where you can go down into the ground, okay, and there's caverns, and they go quite a ways in there. That's corrosion. That's erosion. Nature doing stuff. Okay, these caverns were vast. They're not shaped in any man-made kind of way. It's just like a big cave, and it has these big things coming down from the ceiling, like you saw, like in what a little girl's made of in TOS. Remember? Okay, you got those things coming down from the ceiling everywhere. Okay, you got these weird little shapes that look like kind of like flowers, but it's just rock that's been eroded by water for a long time, just shaping the thing like that. Okay, but you're not going to find anything that's like a straight fucking path, created by water. It's not going to be straight. It's not going to look flush. It's not going to look anything like that. It's because that would give it away as being, well, this was dug out by man. Man made this fucking thing. Okay, so you're not going to see that when you go into the caverns of Sonora. Okay, what you're going to see is your typical cave interior that's been formed from centuries of just water kind of going down in there and tunneling its way through somehow, erosion. And so that's why I say what I'm saying here about this mountain that's shaped like a pyramid. Okay, now it wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility that perhaps at one time people did live on Antarctica, because at one time Antarctica was not all snow and ice. It used to have woods, trees, and stuff like that, even a jungle type area at long ago. I'm thinking about 10,000 years ago. That whole area was basically flourishing with life. There were animals down there and all kinds of stuff. And people might have been down there and they might have built the first pyramid there. Who knows? Because we got pyramids in Egypt, right? We got pyramids there, and some people have been finding we got like across the border from Texas into Mexico, you got pyramid structures there. Okay, so who's to say that maybe at one time a pyramid was built there? It's just I think that it may look like a mountain now because it's not smooth, it's a little bit jagged, but the shape of it is still there. And you can't, if you look at it from the top, from the satellite's point of view, the shape of it looks identical to the shape of the pyramids in Egypt. Okay, so there's nothing that can really convince me that was made by nature. You look at all the mountains in the world, they're all unique in their design. Every one of them. There's no two that are alike. And why would this one mountain be shaped exactly like a pyramid when all the other mountains in the world are shaped like nothing, just random shapes? You know, that doesn't make any sense, okay? So I'm thinking that, you know, at one time, now this is where my imagination takes me here, okay? And, you know, I'm not a big person that likes to dwell or dig up stuff, you know, from theoretical stories and stuff like that. But I go back to the idea about the Garden of Eden, as it were. I mean, at some point, people who wrote about this garden, to this day, people still try to figure out where it was on Earth. And if Antarctica might have been that place because it's all covered over with snow and ice, all right? But if you dig down into the ice deep enough, you're going to pull out plants. They've already showed that on TV, where they've drilled straight down into the ice as far as they could go, and then they pulled out the big thing of ice, and when they get to the bottom, you start to see plants in there and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, well, who's to say that whatever the Garden of Eden was, okay, it may have been there, that whatever inspired the story of Genesis and all that stuff, they might have taken their inspiration from what was Antarctica when it was habitable, okay, and had a good climate. And when they talk about how man was expelled from that area, they're probably talking about how ice and snow and the cold temperatures drove people out. And they could say, well, you know, the person writing it would say, well, it was God. You know, he expelled man from Garden of Eden because they were, you know, acting sinfully or whatever, and all of a sudden the temperature started to get cold there, and people might slowly leaving, because I don't know how long ago it was where the continents were more connected than they are today, but I'm imagining it was probably easier to get people to cross over into other parts of the world. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, when things started to separate more, then it just, people developed their own way. You know, they started their own traditions, they made up their own languages. And then I was thinking about languages, because there's another story in the Bible that talks about that, what's his name, King Nimrod there, with, and remember, he supposedly built a tower where he could climb up at the top of it and shoot a goddamn arrow into the sky and say, oh, I just shot God. And then God said, oh yeah, you think you won? And then he turns around and says, everybody on the earth is going to speak a different language now. So that, you know, basically that was his way of taking his kingdom away from him, so people couldn't understand each other. And everybody goes off in their own separate ways or into the world, and they create their own countries or whatever. And I'm thinking, well, how do we know that this pyramid down here in Antarctica is not that Tower of Babel that was made by, you know, the slave workers for King Nimrod, or whatever, if that was his name, who knows. And maybe there was this tower built down there when Antarctica was still, you know, a nice place to live and you wouldn't freeze your butt off. And that this guy climbed up on top of that pyramid and shot that arrow up into the sky for whatever reason. And for some reason, or what might have happened later, maybe people were speaking different languages only because they were trying to create their own communities or something. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, how that part plays into it, but maybe that was sort of like the result of everybody living their own separate lives. They formed their own languages. Okay, it may not have started from that point where the pyramid was built. It might have came after, but instead the person who wrote the story decided to connect the two and say that it was because he shot that arrow into the sky that created the problem, that everybody fractured and left. They may have just left once the pyramid was finished and told King Nimrod there to go screw himself, because we're not staying. And they all left. It wasn't because of language. It's just they are a revolt. You know, they said, well, he did what he did. Now we're going back to where we came from. You know, and that was the end of it. You know, but whoever wrote the story decided to change the facts a little bit to make sort of a point, you know, to say that God had some hand in that or something like that, you know. So, you know what I'm saying? So maybe this pyramid could possibly be the Tower of Babel that, you know, was mentioned in that story, okay? And like I said, this is just my theory here. I'm not saying this is fact, but you know, people often are always looking, like people think they found where Noah's Ark landed. Remember, I don't know if any of you saw that on TV or not, but they found like a big wooden structure buried half in the ice, okay? And they think that was Noah's Ark. I don't know. It could have been a ship at one time, or a boat that was made long ago and it ended up there. But I mean, they took a piece of wood from it. They haven't gone in. They didn't go inside of it because I think it's full of ice and snow. But you could see the wood from you know, up in the sky, or if you're standing close, you could see people have taken pictures of it, and you could see the structure. It doesn't look like anything a boat. It's actually kind of rectangular in design, with sort of a roofy kind of top on it. I mean, it's very basic. It's not, you know, it's meant to just, you know, almost like a house, basically. It doesn't look like it was something that was built to go on the water, but, you know, who could have built anything that looked like a boat that we'd build today? I mean, it took centuries for man to perfect the art of creating a ship that actually maneuvers well in the water. An ark doesn't have to maneuver, it just floats. It's supposed to just float until it lands somewhere, okay? And basically where it landed, where the sea supposedly receded back, you know, where it's supposed to go, you know, and then this boat ended up high in the air where it was settled by the water, and now that area is just a very frozen mountaintop. And so they found what they think is the ark sitting there. And I would say, well, what if it was an ark, okay? An ark of some kind. Maybe it didn't have all the animals 2 by 2 in there, but maybe somebody decided to build something like that because, you know, maybe they felt like there was going to be a flood of some kind, but it would have been a big flood in order for it to be sitting as high up in the air as it is. And he built this thing, and he put his family in it, and maybe some of his animals that he kept on his farm or some damn thing. You know, who knows? So maybe it was an ark, but it certainly wouldn't have been the ark that was described in the Bible, because that would have had to have been enormous. So I don't know. I really don't know. But like I always keep saying, the stories in the Bible were inspirations of things that people may have witnessed or seen in history, okay? And instead of actually just writing the facts down like we do today, when things happen in history, we just write the facts down and we let the facts speak for themselves. People took those facts and they drew conclusions out of them. They made, you know, ideas, grand ideas that, you know, maybe this is God, maybe, because they didn't understand how these things work. They didn't understand how could this be, you know. And if they couldn't come to a good answer, then it must be God. Everything was God, okay, because there was no science back then that could explain or answer these things that people were scratching their head over for a long time. So people would basically just write down these theories, science fiction, you know, if you want to call it, early versions of science fiction, to explain away, you know, weird things that happened, or or something that happened that they, you know, say, well, how could that have been, you know, or something, you know, and they, or why did it happen, you know, why did this happen in this way or something, you know, like the guy King Nimrod there, or whatever, you know, what a name. Of course, that was before Nimrod means what it means today, but but a lot of things were written, and maybe these things weren't written right off after they happened. They might have been stories passed down from one generation to the next before somebody decided to take and jot this shit down on paper, okay? So it could have been hundreds, maybe even thousands of years before somebody sat down and said, you know what, I ought to write this down in a book or something like that, just so, you know, people can read it or we don't forget, you know. But by the time they got the story, it was so twisted from the truth that, you know, that what they got was a fairy tale instead of the actual fact. And so that's why I say, you know, we can't just dismiss something that we see today as, oh, it's nature making it. I mean, because ain't that the same way as saying, oh, God made this or God, you know. No, let's look at this thing in an objective way and say, look, you know, what are the odds that nature would make something like this in this fashion that looks almost man-made, okay? Wouldn't the odds be more in favor of it being made by man than by nature? Because you look at all the things that are done by nature, and it's a freaking wreck, okay? Tornadoes, hurricanes, you know everything that happens with nature. It's always basically the chips fall where they may. Okay, nature doesn't deliberately carve out straight areas and shit like that in the world, or make walls and stuff like that. That doesn't work that way. Okay, that doesn't work that way. And if people if scientists are actually just gonna settle for that, then these people ain't doing their fucking job. Okay, they're not looking deep enough. Okay, I think these things deserve a lot more attention than they're willing to give it. Now, I understand it's cold down there in Antarctica. Nobody wants to go down there and actually dig around in that thing because they'd freeze their friggin' toes off. Okay, I understand that. Okay, but let's not just jump to a conclusion and say, oh, nature made that. Okay, no, that's not an answer. Okay, that's an excuse. That's what that is. That's just an excuse so you don't have to go down there. I think there's an answer there, and at some point in the future, if we're allowed to, we may find out later on down the road that was constructed by man. We might, when more of it is melted, the snow is melted away more, we might be able to get down there and actually, you know, poke around that mountain a bit more, and we might find some stuff there that looks like, hey, how could this be like that? You know, can't be nature making this. It's rocks stacked on top of each other like a stair. Okay, that just doesn't, you know. And if they dig around that mountain and they find something inside the pyramid or that mountain that looks like a room, I mean, then that blows the whole thing out of water, okay? So that's why I'm saying you cannot just draw a conclusion just by looking at a picture or by taking a shot from a satellite and just saying, it's just a mountain. You know, from what I saw, it's more than that. It's got to be more than that. There's a reason that thing is shaped that way. Okay, and it's not something that was made by nature. Okay, nature makes its own thing. Okay, and it doesn't follow any guidelines that man follows when it makes stuff. Okay, trees. There ain't a tree on this earth that's a straight line. Okay, there's not a single tree. All right, all trees are crooked in some fucking way. So you know, just think about it. But when man gets their hands on stuff, everything has got to be right angles, you know, and stuff like that. You know, we deal with straight lines and making everything fit, you know, perfectly, okay? Because that's the way we deal with our environments, okay? We can't live in a house that's got, you know, a floor like this and then a floor like that, and then, you know, because we can't function in an environment like that. We got 2 arms, 2 legs. You know, we can't do work that way. So we make everything that works with our bipedal, you know, construction, if you want to call it. Okay, so enough of that. So I'm gonna call it a day here on this, and I hope everybody enjoyed listening to this episode here. And please subscribe, you know, if you want to get more notifications of when I do these shows. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So take care, everyone, and I'll talk to you later.
We're all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
Sending out interceptors. We have taken them completely by surprise.
think that the tradition of an engineer is a Scot, you know, because all the great motor ships and the steamships of the world were built in the Clyde.